Hello everyone, my name is Craig Collins. I'm the project director for Cradle Technology. We're a software development house that has a couple of products aimed at the mid-market ERP. So today I'm going to tell you about two of our products. The first one is Granite's WMS or Warehouse Management System, and the second one is our Facets Fixed Asset Auditing and Asset Management System. So the focus of the products are at the mid-market, tier 2, tier 3 companies, and typically running ERP products like Sage ERP 300, Facile Evolution or Sage Evolution, and various other mid-market ERP products. The first thing to note about Granite is that it's tightly integrated with wireless barcode scanning, and it's tightly integrated to various barcode printers and barcoding technology. So the key functionality of Granite is that it delivers traceability and stock accuracy, best practices, and ERP integration. So what I'm going to do is just show you a little bit about the product, and then we'll come back to this presentation. So the look and feel of Granite is, firstly, if I minimize that, it's a scanner. This is the Granite application. When you log on to Granite, you enter a password, username and password, and we have full user authentication as well as user controls to allow a user to be able to do certain functionality. We then, within Granite, have our standard inventory dashboard, which has got reporting for stock details, stock summary, various transactions, and things like that. So this is the look and feel of Granite. So I'm going to start off with master files. So if we look at what master files we've got basically users, types and categories, locations, racks, floor areas, machines, etc., and then master items. Now, with these master files, one sets up your warehouse. So effectively, after you've defined your users and their permissions and what they can do, one can go and specify various types and categories. Now, types can be applied to locations or to master items. So you could define, for example, a type of location of rack or floor area, or a category of product, hazardous, non-hazardous, for example. Mainly used for reporting purposes and filtering purposes. So looking at the screen, here's, for example, category. We have defined category medicine and category consumables and category equipment, and they apply to master item. So the next part is locations. What one does is set up your individual locations in the warehouse. Now, the important thing to remember in a warehouse management system, as opposed to the accounting or ERP system, is that you've got a far greater level of what I call granularity around locations. So, and in fact around stock as well. So the whole idea is that every rack location, every floor location, every location within the warehouse is controlled and managed. The stock in those locations is managed and tracked. So within Granite, we set up locations. I'll show you what this location setup screen looks like. We basically can go in and define, this is the list of locations active at the moment. So you'll see I've got a location A01, 01A01, and that's a rack location. I've defined some locations called machines, and then a floor location called WIP. I can go and define new locations by clicking on new and say the locations. So the next part that we look at is master items. Now, master items are effectively the same as the item master table in your ERP system. And typically, with Granite, we have integration between the ERP and Granite that pulls those master items into Granite automatically. So if you make a change to a master item in your ERP system, it automatically pulls through to Granite. And that integration applies to a number of fields on the master item object in Granite. However, there are extra fields that are not necessarily defined in your accounting system that will allow you to define within Granite to give us additional reporting or additional controls. For example, these top fields would come from the ERP system, the code, the formatted code, the type category description. But then I've got this area for put away. Now what that allows me to do is define a default put away location. I can also automatically put something on hold when it's received. I've got the functionality around pick face replenishment within Granite, which allows me to have bulk stock and then replenish to specific locations. And I can define a minimum quantity in a pick face location as well as the optimal quantity, which drives the reporting to tell a user what to replenish. And then I've got a number of other fields that can be used within Granite that are not necessarily defined in the ERP system. So moving along, we now need to discuss a concept called tracking entities. So within a warehouse management system, again, what you're trying to do is get granularity around the stock that you're managing. So within Granite, we defined a concept or a term called a tracking entity. Anything being tracked is a tracking entity. So that is pallets or boxes of product, bundles, bundles of wood, for example, containers. And tracking entities have properties. So the tracking entity properties typically are things like weight, dimension, the item code that the tracking entity belongs to, the quantity on the tracking entity, the current location, the status, the expiry date, whether there's a batch number associated. So you can have 10 boxes. They're all unique tracking entities, but they all have the same batch number or production batch number. And then serial numbers. For example, I've got 5 pumps in the warehouse. Each pump has a separate serial number, even though they all have the same item code. So you've got the concept of a tracking entity, and anything that happens to a tracking entity gets a transaction. So that means that if a user moves a tracking entity, we record a transaction. If they modify the quantity on a tracking entity, or if they split a tracking entity, if they scrap it, or if they pick it, or pick from it, we have a transaction that gets generated, and that gives us the traceability down to a tracking entity level. Looking at a tracking entity screen, this is an example of what I've done is I've clicked on inventory and tracking entities, and it shows me for a specific tracking entity or specific product code, which I've filtered over here, shows me all the individual tracking entities, number 31 through to number 47. So, and along with their batch numbers, the date they were created, where they are at the moment, and the current status. So that's the concept of tracking entities. Tracking entities is the central concept around any warehouse management system, and it allows us to get the level of control down to boxes, inches, bundles, containers, etc. Moving along, we just discuss a bit more about transactions. So every time something happens in the warehouse, a transaction is generated. We have various properties on those transactions. So for example, a date timestamp, which is critical for any transaction, the user that performed the transaction, if there's a linked document like a sales order or a purchase order or a transfer document, that document linked to the transaction, a from and to location and a from and to status, and then the from and to quantity and the action quantity. If I look at a typical transaction report, here's a transaction report showing me I've filtered on adjustments, and it just shows me the various adjustments and the comments as to why these tracking entities have been adjusted. And under transactions over here, I've got the ability to filter on adjustments, replenishments, movements, transfers, scraps, returns, for example. So all my transactions are defined in Granite, and I can control and filter and export them, in fact, to Excel if I want to. So if I, for example, have a batch number, one can filter on all transactions that happened across that batch number to give you traceability to a batch. So then the final topic that I want to cover under Granite is stock reporting. So within stock reporting, we have each tracking entity, so each box or pallet or container being represented as a unit of stock. And effectively, to get our stock report, what we're doing is we're summarizing by item code on that tracking entity, and that gives us our stock on hand. And then stock can be viewed across locations, across lots, serial numbers, expiry dates, types, and categories. So we have a full facility to do reporting within the individual tracking entities and within our transactions. A good example is this specific report is the stock on hand currently in the Operations Smile warehouse in Cape Town, and we've got the barcode numbers, so in other words, the individual tracking entity, the stock code. So you can see stock code 187 has got those 4 boxes, and all 4 of them are sponge gauzes, and the unit of measure packets, the manufacturer or supplier is Select Medical. The quantity in each box is 1500, and the current location for each of those boxes is all the same, A1D, and then the batch number, which is for medical purposes important, of each of those boxes, as well as the expiry date. Obviously those 2 boxes didn't have an expiry date defined, these ones do, and then the current value and the total value, and that's a value per item and total value. So that's the stock report based on stock on hand at Operations Smile in Cape Town at the moment. Right, so that basically covers the Granite WMS system, and if you want more information, go to www.granitewms.net. Just to wrap up, the scanner screens on Granite are basically based on Internet Explorer, and what I can do is I run this on my scanner, so I minimize this to show you what the screen actually looks like, just to show you what some of the menus are. So this is what your scanner operator will see. So for example, you can go to inventory and do a movement, or you can go to inbound receiving or take on stock. So if I go, for example, inventory move, I can say what location am I moving to, in this case the warehouse. Okay, that's an invalid location, to location of the factory. I haven't checked that data is correct, but effectively that's what my scanner screen looks like. I can do stock takes, I can do transfers of stock between locations where the transfer document is specified and it validates the transfer. I can do outbound picking, so I specify what my picking document is, that's my picking slip or my sales order, and I pick against it. So Granite allows me to do all of this on the scanner itself, and basically with tight integration back into the Granite database, and from there into the ERP system. So that wraps up Granite. Thanks for that. Let's move on to Cradle's next product for this specific market, which is Facets, our physical asset management system. So from the Cradle website, cradle.co.za, one can click on asset management and see a more detailed presentation on Facets and a more detailed set of information around who our customers are and what they're doing with Facets. But effectively, where we've pitched Facets is into the again, the mid-market, although I have a number of corporate customers using it, and with integration into Cispro, Sage, Norming, Navision, and even SAP is one that we're busy working on at the moment. So the purpose of Facets is to give you a corporate quality fixed asset take-on, verification, and auditing system. It supports both barcoding and RFID tagging of assets. So a good example at the moment, we're busy doing a project where we rolled out and doing an audit of all AstraPak's factory assets countrywide. So we're using Facets as the vehicle. We're sticking the barcode labels on all their factory assets, and we're capturing the data, doing the take-on, and doing the verification and auditing process for their factories. SABC is using Facets. The Mount Nelson Hotel in Cape Town is using Facets, and we have rolled it out to a number of other customers countrywide. So there's probably about between 40 and 50 installed sites on Facets at the moment. So what does Facets give us? Well, firstly, the ability to take on assets. So that's where new assets not found on the scanner can be added right there. You can stick a barcode onto the scanner, scan it, and enter the information about the asset. And while in front of the asset, capture the make, model, serial number, and condition immediately. One of the big benefits and what we're finding on the AstraPak project is exactly that. No one has captured the serial numbers on the equipment. So as soon as we add the barcode, we're capturing the serial number as well. Then we have the ability to verify and audit. So physical asset auditing ensures that the financial picture is consistent with the real world. That's the reason we do the audit. With Facets, you basically just scan each asset, review the basic detail to confirm it, and you confirm the status, location, condition, and then move on to the next asset. So Facets carries the last audit to date, and any audit data that needs to be changed or updated can be done as you do the audit. Reporting within Facets is similar to within Granite, where we have extensive reporting across the facet system. So this is what facets look and feel looks like. If I click on assets, these are the assets that are defined. Let me just minimize some of these screens to make it less busy. And these are the assets that I have on the plant. I can do various filters. For example, I can say, show me where I've got a category P2 and the item is leak. So those are all the leak testers that I've got. I can double click on one of these leak testers and I can edit the asset. So this template comes in and I can go and edit the asset on facets itself, but I can also do that on the barcode scanner. So I've got a number of reports within facets to report on assets themselves, assets by barcodes, by master items, and by categories. So for example, clicking on assets by categories, it's showing me quantity and value of assets for each category. And I also, within facets, have extensive transactions. So I can go to transactions, and I can go and view all the transactions that have taken place against any specific asset, as well as what those transactions are. So for example, those are audit transactions, quality change transactions, barcode change transactions, etc. And this gives me full traceability across all the assets within facets. So I'm able to report on all transactions and on the scan data before updating the data into the register. So what happens is I go off with my scanner, I go and do a scan audit, I come back, I can then report on the data, and only then, once I'm happy with the reports, push the data back into my asset register on facets, and then export it in any report and take that export out for integration purposes. So the last part of facets that I want to talk about is integration. So facets can leave the asset management to the ERP system. So effectively, every time you want to do an audit, we download the data from ERP, we go off and we do an audit, produce a set of reports, and create some data import back into the ERP system. Alternatively, you can manage your entire asset register within facets without the values, and then report on the physical locations and physical goings-on about your asset within facets, and have your financial register in your ERP system. Bear in mind, facets does not have financial components. So we don't, although we carry on an individual asset, we carry the value, and we carry, for example, the current value. So if I click on it and I click on finance, I can see what my account code is. We don't do any form of depreciation. Some of the innovative functionality around facets is I've got this ability to do hyperlinks or notes. So I can, for example, create a note or an event. If we have facets running in a hotel and a guest says, look, in my room I've got an air conditioner that's not working, well, I can go and find the air conditioner by filtering on his room, bring the asset up and put a note in there that the air conditioner is not working. And the next time someone calls in for that air conditioner, I can see what actions were taken. So there is an element of note-taking and management of the assets that you can do within facets as well. But its real strength is around auditing. Now, the one part that we haven't covered, which is important to cover, is the scanner operation. So what I do in the scanner operation is I create a scanning session. I then send all the data to the scanner, go off and do the audit, and come back and I receive the scan data from the scanner. What it shows me when I do receive data is a color-coded set of data that says the white detail, there's no change. The blue detail, I've done replacement of barcode. The yellow one there, I've changed some detail on the asset itself. And you can see this. And this is all shown to you prior to you accepting and passing this data back into your asset register. That pretty much covers what I want to discuss on our facets fixed asset management system. And I think the important thing is just that the quality of our customer base for facets is really good. We have everyone from people like the Mount Nelson and the Midlands University in Zimbabwe through to the Eastern Cape Rural Development Agency, the Johannesburg Development Agency, the NAHAWU, the National Health Workers Union, the ANC legislator in Cape Town. Parliament in South Africa, South African Parliament is running facets, and this year, the first year they're running facets, the first year, coincidentally, that they happen to get a clean bill of health on their audits. So facets is making a difference out there. All right, that's my presentation, and thank you very much.